Hi and welcome to my video. Here I'm peer assessing IanSzczebiot's scheme of work. My name's David Midwinter. The subject is film studies. The level of study is AS level. It's at New College, Swindon. So the layout and clarity. What are the learning aims of the scheme of work is my first question. That's quite clear. It's to provide the learning aims are to provide an analysis of film, explore and evaluate how meaning and responses are generated through the textual elements of film, and to provide students with a foundation in the analysis of film, including specialist language. My apologies to the viewer if I'm not looking into the camera. I am reading this from the document that I've got open. So this is all very, very clear within the aims of the scheme of work. They're very concise. The learning objectives that within the individual sessions are clearly definable as well. They're mapped out between the individual sessions. They are very defined at the start of the scheme. Criticism would be towards the end of the scheme. There's less detail and fewer learning outcomes. There's also less session content. I don't know whether that's a reflection of it being a work in progress or whatever, but it's certainly at the start it's a lot more rich. The learning objectives, do they contribute to the overall aim of the scheme? So the individual objectives introduce more complex areas of topic as the scheme progresses. It does provide a layered content, so there is layered learning. It builds upon subject content to learn the knowledge as the schemes work through. A criticism I would have is the formatting of the document is less than ideal. The lessons and content are spread out on 2 different pages in places, which can mean the content is confusing to the reader. It's not clearly definable which lessons or week the content refers to in every instance. Improving this would make the scheme more usable, understandable to a stand-in or to a supply teacher, or to the layman such as myself. I feel the scheme has more aims than the theoretical. Perhaps these should be reflected within its introduction. Learners are being taught to perform physical film-making tasks as well as understand the theory behind that. So I could feel that could be reflected more within the aim of the scheme and of the in learning objectives in the sessions. So what teachers' methods are being used within the sessions? Role-play activities, practical demonstration of studio lighting, recording equipment, etc. Question and answer sessions are being used. Student quizzes as a recap exercise. There are a lot of videos with focal questions, which is what you would expect on a film studies course. What resources are being incorporated? So this is lighting studios, PowerPoints, recording equipment, recording studios, videos, your generic teacher tool, maybe with a little bit more emphasis on film, as you would expect within a film course. So are they appropriate would be my next question. Yes, film recording and lighting are an integral part of film and media studies as I understand it. However, there is emphasis on the actual process of filmmaking, using lighting and recording equipment effectively. Learners are acquiring practical skills within this that aren't really being measured or recorded. So that would be one criticism. Does the scheme incorporate differentiation? Was my next question. So some exercises are mostly individual. So most exercises are individually assessed to provide individual learning outcomes or areas of development, and the extension activities within the scheme have a higher level of competency. So you're able to take that on a notch further if you're capable. So I think this kind of does provide an individual learning, a very kind of one-on-one almost teaching ability, because I would imagine that the projects that they're working on are very individualised, very localised to them. So I think that would differentiate between different learning abilities and capabilities. So the assessments within the scheme, sorry, I've scrolled down too far. So formative assessments of key terminology are constant throughout the scheme. These are in a quiz format. There are periodic formative essays in relation to key terminology and theoretical principles involved in filmmaking. This is kind of building learner knowledge as we go, all kind of developing that rich kind of content that's rich topic content that's developing within the learner, hopefully. There is one summative assessment in form of a pass or fail recall of key terminology within the scheme. So then my next question then is, how are the assessments within the scheme coherent with its overall aims? Well, the essay questions reflect the aims of the scheme. Learners are providing a written account of the analysis methodology employed within film studies. The informal and formative nature of the assessment lend themselves to providing individual learning plans that incorporate their aptitude, as I've said, and achieve the individual lesson objectives and overall scheme aims, which tie in quite nicely. And as I've alluded to, the practical nature of some of the assessment and physical aspects of actual filmmaking don't really give learners practice or experience of answering the types of assessment questions they're being set. So, the end of topic question, it has a theoretical essay as its format and its methodology. Not all of the activities or the assessment within the scheme are really preparing the learners for this at the end. So that could be looked at. How reliable are the assessment methods? My basic question is, how can a teacher be sure of the results? The assessment methods are continually monitored in the form of learner checks, which these quizzes that are taking place at the start of every course, of every lesson. The formative nature builds levels of topic understanding, which, when checked regularly with the ongoing nature of the assessment strategy, gives the teacher a reliable picture of any gaps in learner knowledge in theory. The informal nature, however, of these assessments, quizzes and question answering sessions might not provide an actual picture of the learner's level of topic knowledge if they aren't recorded. So this might give the teacher an overly optimistic impression of learner knowledge if assumptions are made regarding overall class consensus based upon answers from one group of individuals. What I mean by that is, just because one student can answer a question, even if the class hear the answer to that question, there's no way of knowing if the rest of the class have retained this information without recording their answers against the same question. So just because one knows the answer doesn't mean to say they all do, is the basic point there. So how does the scheme incorporate functional skills, was my next question. So there are examples of developing learners' writing abilities through practice essays and the written answering the questions from a theoretical perspective. There's no means of developing numeracy skills that I've seen, which, due to my limited knowledge of film studies, mean I'm unable to evaluate whether this is a weakness or not within the scheme. I don't know if a numerical understanding is relevant in the field of filmmaking. I can imagine, and with certain conditions it might be, with lighting levels, etc. But I'm purely. It's just pure speculation. I can't comment on a firm basis, so I'm unable to comment there. But the use of ICT is not mentioned as improving a functional skill, and I think that there's probably a gap here. Again, just from an outsider looking in, this is not with any kind of inside knowledge, but as film and filmmaking is becoming increasingly more digital and computerized in its methodology and in the recording of it and the producing of it, I would imagine that there is some kind of functional ICT skills that could perhaps be used, in the scheme and within the individual lessons. That concludes my video for the moment. Thank you for your time.